Stand here with me for a second. Your name gets called. You have to stand up in front of 30 classmates and explain your project. Before you even get out of your seat, something strange happens in your body. Your heart starts pounding at a ridiculous speed. Your palms go sweaty. Your voice shakes on the very first word. And in the worst moments, your mind goes completely blank, and you forget everything you studied, even though you reviewed it 10 times. You sit back down feeling humiliated. You ask yourself, why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal like everyone else? The answer might genuinely surprise you. You're not the only one who feels this way, and the problem isn't you at all. In fact, the fear of speaking in front of people ranks among the most common fears across all of humanity, regardless of age, culture, or language. And here's the stranger part. This fear isn't a flaw in your character. It's an ancient mechanism in your brain, built for a real reason. And tonight we're going to learn how to outsmart it and calm it down in under 2 minutes. In the last video, we learned that our brains are still running an operating system that's 200,000 years old. Today, we're diving deeper into one specific part of that system, how your brain handles social danger. Let's go back thousands of years. Your earliest ancestor didn't live alone. He lived in a small tribe, maybe 30 or 40 people at most. And getting kicked out of that tribe, being rejected or exiled, basically meant certain death. No food on your own, no protection from predators, no shelter on a freezing night. So the human brain developed a terrifying sensitivity to anything that might threaten its standing within the group. And here's where the real surprise comes in. Neuroscience research has found that the brain regions processing social rejection, things like the embarrassment of standing in front of a class, actually overlap with the same regions that process real physical pain. In other words, when you're afraid of standing up in front of the class, your brain doesn't fully distinguish that from actually getting physically hurt. This is exactly why the fear you feel isn't an overreaction or weakness. It's a genuine response from a nervous system that truly believes your life is on the line. Let me walk you through exactly what happens in your body in that moment. The second your teacher calls your name, your amygdala fires an instant alarm signal to something called the hypothalamus, which then triggers a hormonal chain reaction, ending in a release of adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline speeds up your heartbeat to pump more blood toward your muscles, getting you ready to fight or flee. That's why it feels like your heart is about to jump out of your chest. Your sweaty palms happen because your body is trying to cool itself down, preparing for major physical exertion. And your dry mouth happens because your body temporarily shuts down non-essential functions, like digestion, to focus every ounce of energy on survival. As for that terrifying mind-blank moment, when you forget everything all at once, there's a precise scientific explanation for it too. When cortisol floods your brain in large amounts, it temporarily impairs your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logical thinking and pulling up memories. Your body, in that exact moment, doesn't want you to think deeply. It wants you to run or fight, not explain a science project. That's exactly why you lose the ability to recall even things you know cold. Think about it this way. Your nervous system is gearing up to face a lion while you're just holding a slideshow. That gap between how big your body's reaction is and how small the actual danger is, that gap is exactly what makes the whole experience so exhausting. Now let me tell you about one specific moment I lived through myself, one I still remember in full detail. I was in 10th grade and I had to present a physics project in front of the entire class, 28 students exactly. I practiced in front of my mirror at home 4 times and I felt completely ready. But the second I stood up in front of everyone and saw all those eyes locked on me, the first sentence in my head vanished completely, like it had never been there at all. I stood there in silence for what felt like a full minute, though in reality it was only 7 seconds. But those were the longest 7 seconds of my life. After that moment, I decided to figure out why this happens despite all the preparation you put in. And I discovered something that completely changed how I saw the whole issue. Preparation alone doesn't shut off your nervous system's response, because preparation only speaks to your conscious mind, while fear comes from a deeper, faster part of the brain, a part that doesn't read or hear the words you memorized. It only responds to the threat level it senses. That means you need tools that speak to the nervous system itself, not just your memory. Before we get into those tools, I want to point out something important. This pattern doesn't just show up in front of a classroom. It shows up in plenty of situations you probably never connected before. When you hesitate to raise your hand and ask a question, that's the exact same pattern. When you write a text to someone you like and delete it 10 times before sending, that's the exact same pattern. When you avoid making a phone call and default to texting instead, even when calling would be faster, that's also the exact same pattern. When you feel embarrassed asking for something simple at a restaurant or returning an item to a store, your brain fires off the same alarm. In every one of these moments, your body treats the possibility of rejection as if it were real physical danger. Once you understand this connection, you'll start noticing the same feeling showing up in places you never expected. There's a common misconception we need to correct before moving into solutions. A lot of people think adrenaline is an enemy that needs to be eliminated completely. That's not true. Adrenaline is exactly what gives you energy, focus, and quick reflexes. Professional athletes rely on it to deliver their best performances. Stage actors need it to bring real energy to an audience. The problem was never the presence of adrenaline. The problem is how you interpret it, reading it as a danger signal instead of a readiness signal. And that's exactly what the first tool we're about to learn addresses. Tool 1, and it's probably the most powerful, is called arousal reappraisal. When your heart races before speaking in public, your mind labels that as anxiety. But physiologically, your body barely distinguishes between anxiety and intense excitement. Both trigger the exact same racing heart. Psychology experiments have found that people who say out loud, before a stressful moment, "I'm excited," instead of "I'm calm," consistently perform noticeably better. That's because trying to force instant calm requires your body to shift from high arousal to low arousal, and that's genuinely hard. Excitement, on the other hand, is also high arousal, so the shift there is far easier on your body because you're not changing the intensity of the energy, you're just renaming it. Tool 2 is a direct physical one, box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, then hold again for 4 seconds, and repeat that cycle 4 times. This breathing pattern sends a direct signal to your autonomic nervous system that the danger has passed, because fast, irregular breathing is a signature of fear, while slow, steady breathing is a signature of safety. Special Forces operators actually use this exact technique before high-stress missions, and it lowers heart rate within under a minute. Tool 3 relies on something called the spotlight effect. Your brain convinces you that every eye in the room is locked precisely on you, catching every shake in your voice, every tiny mistake you make. But the reality is completely different. Psychological research has found that people notice our mistakes and our nervousness at a much lower rate than we imagine, because everyone else in the room, deep down, is roughly just as preoccupied with their own thoughts, their own appearance, and what they're going to say next. You're not under a microscope like you think. You just feel like you are, and that's a huge difference between feeling and fact. Tool 4 is the slowest to show results, but the strongest long-term, repeated exposure. Every single time you stand in front of people and survive it, even if the performance wasn't perfect, your brain logs new information. This situation didn't kill me. And with repetition, your alarm system gradually starts dialing down its response because it learns this danger isn't actually real danger. That means the first time will always be the hardest, not because you're weak, but because it genuinely is the hardest neurologically. And every time after that gets a little easier, even if you don't feel it in the moment. Tool 5 is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. When your mind goes blank and you feel completely disconnected from your body, silently name 5 things you can see around you, then 4 things you can hear, then 3 things you can touch, then 2 things you can smell, and finally, 1 thing you can taste. This exercise forces your mind back into the present moment instead of spiraling into "what if I fail?" Try it anytime you feel your mind starting to drift. Tool 6 is quick and physical, something you can use right before walking into any stressful situation, called rapid muscle release. Clench both fists as hard as you can for 5 seconds, then release them suddenly. Repeat that 3 times. This simple exercise drains off a chunk of the excess muscular energy your body prepared for fight or flight, leaving you noticeably lighter and calmer. You can do it under a desk or in your pocket, without anyone noticing at all. Here's another practical thing that makes a real difference. What you do in the 2 minutes right before walking into the situation. Most people spend those minutes anxiously rereading their notes or nervously checking their phone. That actually increases arousal instead of lowering it. Try a fixed, simple routine instead. Stand somewhere quiet. Straighten your back and roll your shoulders back. Take 3 deep breaths. No counting needed. Then say 1 sentence to yourself that reminds you why you're there. Something like, "I have something worth hearing." If you repeat this routine every single time, it eventually becomes a signal your body learns and starts associating with readiness instead of danger. Since a lot of us today aren't just standing in front of a classroom, but in front of a phone camera recording a video or an Instagram story, I want to tell you something important. The exact same nervous mechanism that fires in front of a classroom fires in front of a camera lens too. Your brain treats a small screen hundreds of people will watch later the same way it treats a room full of people staring at you right now. That's why a lot of people trying to make content feel that same shakiness and dry mouth during their first 10 times recording themselves. And the good news is, the exact same tools we learned today work there too. No difference at all. Let me share one last statistic that will genuinely put you at ease. Research on social anxiety has found that more than half of the people you assume are naturally confident are actually experiencing roughly the same level of internal stress. The only difference is they've learned how to hide the physical reaction from others, not that they don't feel it at all. That means the gap between you and that confident person you admire is a lot smaller than you imagine. I know some of you are thinking right now, I tried the breathing, I tried preparing, and I'm still just as nervous. I want to be completely honest with you. These tools don't eliminate the feeling of nervousness entirely. And there's no one on earth who feels zero nervousness before something important. Even the most skilled public speakers in the world feel a light shake before stepping on stage. The goal was never zero nervousness. The goal is learning how to perform well, despite the nervousness. That's because it's exactly what every confident-looking person is actually doing. To be completely honest with you, the level everyone feels this at is different. Some people feel mild nervousness that fades after the first sentence or two. Others feel something much stronger, lasting through the whole situation and even after. And if you're someone who feels this anxiety goes beyond just situational nervousness, affecting your daily life, your relationships, or your schoolwork in a significant way, that's something worth talking to a professional about, like a therapist. There's absolutely no shame in that. And these tools we covered today are genuinely useful for the ordinary anxiety most of us experience, but they're not a substitute for specialized support if the need runs deeper than that. For most of us, the good news is that this kind of nervousness genuinely improves over time. Not because it magically disappears, but because you keep learning, one time after another, that your body can handle this feeling and keep going anyway. Every time you give a presentation, speak up in a meeting, or record a video, you're not just proving something to other people. You're proving it to your own brain, and that proof accumulates over time into real confidence. Not just words you repeat to yourself without believing them. There's a fundamental distinction you need to understand right now. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. Confidence is moving forward despite the fear. The people you see looking confident on stage, on camera, or in an important meeting aren't free of anxiety. They've just practiced more, exposed themselves to the situation more, until their fear shrank smaller than it used to be, not disappeared entirely. There's one more quick tool, taking only 15 seconds, called the physiological sigh. Take 2 quick inhales through your nose, back to back, the first deep, the second short on top of it. Then exhale very slowly through your mouth, like you're blowing out a candle far away. This specific breathing pattern flushes excess carbon dioxide out of your lungs fast and calms your heart rate within seconds. You can do it sitting down, or literally the second before your teacher calls your name, and nobody around you will notice. You might be asking yourself, okay, but what if I do all of this and I still perform badly? That's a fair question, and the answer matters a lot. Even if you stumble, forget a line, or your voice shakes in front of everyone, that's not the end of the world. Most people forget the details of your presentation within a few days, while you'll remember it for months, because your brain gives far more weight to your own personal experiences than anyone else ever will. One single setback doesn't erase all the progress you've made, and it's often the best teacher for next time. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you why this exact skill is going to matter for years to come. Today, maybe the situation is a class presentation. A few years from now, it'll be a job interview. After that, maybe a meeting with your boss, or a pitch for your own project in front of investors, or even a toast at a family event. The nervous system that races today in front of your class is the same one that'll race then. And the tools you're learning right now, while you're still young, will become second nature by the time you get there. That's instead of something you're scrambling to learn later under even more pressure. That's exactly why starting now matters. Not because the current situation is dangerous, but because the skill you're building today will serve you at every stage of life ahead. Before I let you go, Here's one practical step. The next time you feel your heart racing before something important, take one single box breath, 4 seconds per phase, and tell yourself clearly, in your head, I'm excited, not scared. It won't erase the nervousness completely, but it will genuinely change your relationship with it. Before I leave you for today, I'd love to ask you something. What's the situation that makes your heart race the most? Is it speaking in front of class, raising your hand to ask a question, or something else we didn't cover today? Drop it in the comments. I promise I'll read every single one, and your situation might just become the topic of a future video. If this video helped you, share it with a friend you know deals with the exact same feeling. This might be exactly the information they need to stop blaming themselves for something that was never their fault to begin with. In the next video, we're covering something completely different: how to learn any subject in a quarter of the time you currently spend on it, using a technique called the Feynman technique, used by one of the greatest physicists in history. If you made it to this point, that tells me you're someone looking for real answers, not shallow quick fixes. Hit subscribe, because we're still just at the beginning of a long journey to understand our own minds, one step at a time, one truth at a time. See you in the next video.